For generations, women suffered silently with few treatment options and fertility concerns. Today, 1 in 3 will be diagnosed with fibroids. 80% of women of African descent have fibroids. Our numbers are too great for this story to continue. Will you join me in creating a new story, a movement? Let's let the world know that we are empowered, resilient, and focused. Hi, I'm Sateria. I faced fibroids at the age of 26. Freedom from fibroids will mean that women around the world will no longer have to suffer. Let's create a global movement together. Welcome to Fibroid Awareness Month 2021. Our ambassadors are joining us. Oh my goodness. We would love for you to meet our ambassador team. We have 22 chapters around the country, and they're joining us now. You'll learn more about the work that they do and how we are striving to make a difference in your community. Today, you will meet our ambassadors from Ohio, Massachusetts, and Michigan.
Hello, Cleveland. I am Taya. I am your brand ambassador for the Cleveland Fibroid Foundation chapter. If you are struggling with fibroids or you know someone who is struggling with fibroids, please email me at clevelandchapter@fibroidfoundation.org. Welcome to Cleveland Fibroid Foundation. Can't wait to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Boston. I'm Jermaine, the Fibroid Foundation Boston Chapter Ambassador, and behind me is historic Faneuil Hall.
Hi, I'm Talina Shaw.
And I'm Tracy Armstrong.
And we're the Fibroid Foundation Ambassadors for the city of Detroit, home of
Motown!
I joined the foundation in November of 2019 in support of other women, and we would like for you all to come out and join the Fibroid Foundation.
Right here in Detroit, Michigan. And I also joined the Fibroid Foundation just due to dealing with fibroids myself and definitely wanting to get some information. So we're here to represent Detroit, Michigan, and all the women who suffer with fibroids.
Honoring a true hero, the life and legacy of the Honorable Stephanie Tubbs Jones. Wife and mother. Judge. And Congresswoman. Her radiant smile lit up the room. She didn't just like people, she loved people. In an interview, she shared, "I grocery shop just for the fun of it, just to meet and greet my constituents." And her constituents didn't get a handshake, they got a hug. In remembering the Honorable Stephanie Tubbs Jones, Hillary Rodham Clinton said, "When I think of our friend, I think of faith and family. I think of country and Cleveland. I think of constituents whom she served with such devotion and children whom she loved." Joining us now is Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, colleague, Delta Sigma Theta sister, and friend of the Honorable Stephanie Tubbs Jones.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Yvette D. Clarke, and I proudly represent New York's 9th District, that's Central and South Brooklyn. And I am so proud to join you here in honor of my dear friend, soror, and colleague, the late, great, Honorable Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones. Congresswoman Tubbs Jones was a trailblazer. She was the first African-American woman to represent Ohio in Congress. In addition, she was one of the first African American women to chair a standing congressional committee, the Ethics Committee, in the House of Representatives. She served as a pillar of excellence, fortitude, and brilliance, a woman of warmth, integrity, and an ever-present source of support. During her tenure in Congress, one of her primary legislative priorities was the Uterine Fibroids Research and Education Act. And as a treasured member of the Congressional Black Caucus, she focused on this issue because African American women are statistically more likely to be affected by this debilitating condition than women of any other race or ethnicity. She would often say, "Black women deserve better." She introduced the bill 4 times, and although it has not been signed into law yet, many more people have learned about the disease due to her legislative efforts. That is why I've reintroduced H.R. 2007, the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Uterine Fibroid Research and Education Act of 2021, named in her honor and in tribute to her legacy in the United States Congress. For those who don't know, uterine fibroids are non-cancerous growths on the uterus and are among the nation's most common gynecological conditions. Increasing awareness about the uterine fibroids is critical to our efforts to address the national maternal mortality crisis and prevent pregnancy-related deaths, as well as tending to the health and well-being of Black women. About 26 million women and girls in the U.S. between the ages of 15 and 50 have fibroids, and no group suffers more from fibroids than Black women. Black women are at an increased risk for the disease compared to white women and tend to get fibroids at a younger age and suffer more severe symptoms. Fibroids are estimated to cost the healthcare system $5.9 billion to $34.4 billion annually. This issue has not received the attention, research, nor funding it requires and deserves. So, in honor of my dear friend, soror, and colleague, the Honorable Stephanie Tubbs Jones, through my service, my diligence, and my dedication to not only advancing the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Uterine Fibroid Research and Education Act, but also in championing the issues that fortify protections for marginalized and underserved communities in Brooklyn, New York State, and across our country. Thank you for taking the time to join us in the fight for Black women's health equity. Stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and take good care of yourself.
Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones served her constituents in Cleveland for 5 terms. She was a powerful advocate for the underserved. During her time in office, she introduced 64 bills. One of her focuses was on healthcare disparities. In 2007, she introduced the Uterine Fibroid Research Act of 2007. At the time, uterine fibroids were a relatively unknown condition, and when she was asked why this bill was so important, she said, "Women deserve better." Although the bill never became law, she was instrumental in educating others through her legislative efforts. In the words of President Barack Obama, it wasn't enough for her just to break barriers in her own life. She was also determined to bring opportunity to all those who had been overlooked and left behind. And in Stephanie, they had a fearless friend and an unyielding advocate. Hello, today we're greeting you from Cleveland for our segment, Honoring a True Hero. And I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Mervyn L. Jones II, son of Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones. Mervyn, thank you so much for being here today.
Steria, thank you so much for having me be able to talk about such an important piece of legislation and effort that affects not only the world, but our community especially.
We're so grateful for your support on this. It means the world to us.
Anything I can do, it's personal because my mother wrote this bill. She was a victim of fibroids, and we want to make sure that everything is exhausted when it comes to making sure women who have fibroids are treated and ultimately cured.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And for our listeners who might not be aware, Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones wrote the initial fibroid bill in 2005. So we have really worked hard to see that legislation introduced. And so my first question is going to be, just to tell us a little bit more, give us a flavor of just the amazing woman that your mom was. Do you have any special childhood stories that you'd like to share?
I have a ton of childhood stories. Some of those stories I definitely will never share.
Okay.
But nonetheless,
I
my mother, as you know, and for those who weren't able to meet her, everybody describes her as a force. Something that was just uncanny, somebody that just came out of nowhere and was bred and taught the right way, and she took it in her own way and made it something special. So a special story for me would be, I was going to college, Hiram College here in Ohio, and the first thing she said to me is, "Have fun, but don't mess this up for me." And what happened? Economics class, first semester, football practice, 6 o'clock in the morning, economics class at 7:30 in the morning. Walk into class, sit in the corner, and not realizing what we're talking about today, lo and behold, my mom is there speaking, and I had no clue, and she had intentionally done that.
Oh my goodness.
Because she just wanted to make sure I was there at class and all this, and I was dozing off, and she said, "Excuse me," and I looked up and I was just frightened because she knew I had practice at 6 o'clock in the morning, and she just said, "There's no excuse." We had dinner or breakfast after that class, and she said, "I'm happy you made it to class, but nonetheless, being there isn't enough." She was big on education and big on, following through on what you say you're going to do.
She wanted to keep you on your toes.
Absolutely. And then on the same theme, my mother, was always in, restaurants, grocery stores, and every time she would meet somebody new, she would say, "Hey, if you need anything, here's my card." She always had a card on her, or she made sure I had cards on me, or whoever was staffing her at the time. And following through on those promises, I remember specifically there was one woman whose son was sentenced to some amount of time in jail for a possession case. And my mother was the county prosecutor at the time, but she didn't oversee the case. For some reason, she was able to go back and review and get the kid a lesser sentence because it was just possession, not a violent crime, and keeping her word to her mother as another mother to a black child. So
those are amazing stories. She was, like you said, a true force, and I love the fact that she gave her card to people because it let her constituents know that she was really there representing them, that she heard them, and she was concerned about what they are concerned about. So that's just wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you talk about a force, I looked at so much video of your mom, and I thought there's no way that there could be one word that encompasses this lady because she is so many beautiful qualities. And so when you think about leadership qualities that she exuded as, chairwoman of ethics and various roles that she held, what are some of the leadership qualities that you'd like to highlight of your mother's?
Every time she walked in the room, it wasn't, "Hey, Sam," or "Hey, John." It was, "Hey, brother," "Hey, sister," "Hey, baby." It was that maternal instinct that she had, that she brought to everybody. It wasn't, this is my best friend from here. No, this is my sister from X, Y, and Z from however many years. We went to school together, we went to church together, we went to, we were sorority sisters. Like, she went into detail when she introduced somebody so to make them more comfortable with who she was introducing them to. And when you inspire that kind of confidence in somebody, it makes sure that they are feeling the love more than anything. And then when you have somebody that's in your corner backing you like that, it gives you more confidence.
Absolutely, and it gives you that sense of community that she was so much about, just bringing everyone into the fold. That's wonderful.
Absolutely, yeah.
So back to the fibroid bill, did your mom happen to share any insights around her introduction of the fibroid bill that you'd like to share with us?
So I remember the year, not exactly the exact time because I was getting ready to go to I was in college at the time, 2005, and people had mentioned it to me. We had talked about it before, but I didn't know the whole scope because, college kid, you're not thinking about biology and things of that nature. You're thinking about sports, friends, and then trying to make sure that you stay in college.
Yeah.
But what makes this bill so personal to me is that my mother had fibroids, and she had issues with giving birth to a child, and would have been my sister, or is my sister, I'll say. And that story was held for me until I was old enough to understand the meaning behind fibroids and what happens when a woman has fibroids, and what happens with childbirth. And that's a story that carries with me into my work, and now being able to help out with the Fibroid Foundation and all the missions that you're working on to make sure that this legislation gets across the finish line. It's rare you can go into a member of Congress's office and personalize it to that extent.
And you really touched on you answered this next question for me, which is really just how uterine fibroids can impact a family. I think a lot of times people can often kind of silo uterine fibroids as just a woman's issue personally, but it really is a community issue because it is so widespread and it impacts everyone in the universe around that person who is suffering. So thank you for sharing that very personal story. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure our listeners will too, because there's so much power in our stories, and we all have just so many tremendous stories to share. And I believe it's healing as well to be able to share those stories. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for giving me a platform to do so.
My pleasure. And it was really touching to me to see your mom speak about how much joy you brought to her life. She called you her man-child several times. And I just wondered how her beautiful influence, and I'm sure your dad's influence too, because he's not mentioned as much, but they were a beautiful couple. How did their parenting impact your career?
Their parenting styles, I'll say it loosely because it's not totally correct in the terms I'm going to use. Thunder and lightning.
Really?
Yeah, my mom was the lightning. She gets you up and moving, and if you're moving slow, the thunder comes right around the corner just to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to. And having those two in the household was truly something to see. You had my father, who was a street smart businessman who knew everything about everybody, could read somebody within 5 minutes, and then my mother, who's the lawyer, prosecutor, judge, congresswoman, who ultimately wanted to be a social worker before her whole political career jumped off. You have that dynamic, and it's a blessing to have people from both sides of the tracks in your family teaching you the rights and wrongs and how to do things and how to grow and be a family.
I love the thunder and lightning analogy. That's priceless. And I can see her social work, her interest in social work in her work. I believe that in life one thing transitions or helps you to, elevate another area that you're interested in. And that makes perfect sense when I hear you, you describe her interest in social work. So HR 2007 is the uterine fibroid bill. It was reintroduced in March of this year, and we are now awaiting hopefully a Senate introduction, and looking forward to hopefully a positive vote in the fall. And so I just wonder, with your extensive knowledge of this space, what needs to occur to ensure that this passes?
For this bill to pass, it's not about lobbyists like myself or large, powerful firms. It's about the people. So this opportunity I will take to say, for those here in the audience who are connected or who aren't connected, take the time to reach out to your member of Congress. Take the time to reach out to your senator, because ultimately with the grassroots reaching out, and then people like myself and others in DC making sure that there's follow-up from that, together we can get, great members like a Yvette Clarke, Joyce Beatty, who's now the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Robin Kelly, Lauren Underwood, members of the CBC, the CHC, and even on the other side of the aisle, because this affects them as well. We want to be able to make this a household issue that can be solved in a community that isn't just selected by one group.
That is so beautifully said, and it's going to take all of us, and you pointed that out really beautifully, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you for the time, and this is just a beautiful effort, and I'm just so happy that you were able to find me.
I am too, and I so appreciate all of your support, and we're looking forward to continuing to partner with you to make a lot of positivity, hopefully, within the community. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for everything, and I look forward to, again, I can't say it enough. Can't wait to keep on working with you on this.
Awesome. Thank you, Mervyn.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being with us today. Please stick with us and follow our updates as we closely track and advocate for the successful passage of the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Fibroid Research and Education Act of 2021. Be well.